What's going on, everybody? This is Ferris Biscuit here for week 4 of the United Hearthstone League. And before we get into the recap, I want to go ahead and announce the winner of our Instagram launch giveaway. So congratulations to James Wydell III. He goes on Twitter by James Wydell III. He is our winner, for this giveaway. So I have reached out to you, James. If you could please accept my friend request and let me know what kind of packs you want, would be greatly appreciated. And let's go ahead and jump right into the recap.
For week 4, we would see Ben Reddington taking on Andrew Brown. We would see Ziggy Zera taking on Versika. We would have Rod Johnston taking on Chris. And we would also have Ridiculous Hat taking on Spivey. Our first matchup of the week saw Rod Johnston of the Tier 5 podcast taking on Chris Plummer of the 1600 Dust podcast. Both players wanted to go ahead and note this match as the Meme Bowl, bringing Shaman, Warrior, and Hunter, which we all know are not the best classes as of late, but they wanted to go ahead and see how they fare against one another. So they did bring Shaman, Warrior, and Hunter, and let's see how this one turned out. In Game 1, Rod would take the early lead with his Shaman class over Chris's Warrior. However, Chris would respond, taking Game 2 and the Hunter Mira, and also Game 3 with his Shaman over Rod's Hunter once more. Rod would respond from there, however, taking the Warrior Mira and tying things up at 2 apiece. In our final game for this matchup, Rod was ultimately able to pull out the victory with his Hunter over Chris's Warrior. Our second matchup of the week featured Ben Reddington of the Dad Legend community taking on Andrew Brown of the Happy Hearthstone podcast. Ben would be bringing his Druid, Priest, and Warlock classes, while Andrew opted to go with Warlock, Hunter, and Mage. In Game 1, Andrew would jump out to an early lead, taking his Hunter over Ben's Druid. In Game 2, we would see a Warlock Mirror in which Andrew would also be victorious, taking a 2-0 lead. And finally, in Game 3, Andrew completes his second 3-0 match in a row, taking his Mage over Ben's Druid. Our third match of the week saw Ziggy Zera of the 1600 Us podcast taking on Versika of the Hero Power podcast. Ziggy would be going with her Warlock, Warrior, and Paladin classes, while Versika would be bringing Druid, Warlock, and Paladin. In Game 1, Versika would take the 1-0 lead with his Druid over Ziggy's Warlock. However, Ziggy would respond with her Warlock in Game 2, taking the victory over Versika's Paladin. In Game 3, Versika would answer her with a win with his Warlock of his own against Ziggy's Warrior. In Game 4, we saw a Paladin mirror that went Ziggy's way. And finally, in Game 5, Ziggy was able to pull out the victory with her Warrior against Versika's Paladin. Our final matchup of the week would see Ridiculous Hat of the Coin Conceit podcast taking on Spiver of the 1600 Dust podcast. Spiver vowed to end Ridiculous Hat's winning streak so that he would not go undefeated during the regular season, and he would be bringing his Warlock, Paladin, and Rogue classes, while Ridiculous Hat would be going with Mage, Hunter, and Shaman. In Game 1, Hat would come out with a 1-0 victory, taking his Shaman class over Spivey's Paladin. However, Spivey would answer the call with a win with his Warlock class over Hat's Hunter class in Game 2, tying things up at 1 apiece. From there, Hat would go on to win Game 3 with his Hunter over Spivey's Paladin. However, Spivey would answer in Game 4 with his Rogue over Hat's Mage. In Game 5, we would see Mage taking on Paladin that would ultimately see Hat coming out with a 3-2 victory as he remains undefeated on the season. Taking a look at the class selections for this week, we have some interesting notes here. Warlock was chosen the most times this week at 5. While the rest of the field is pretty evenly dispersed. It's interesting to note that Warlock was more chosen for week 3 at the end of the first cycle, but for the second cycle, it was chosen the most for the first week of the cycle. It'll be interesting to see how things play out moving forward. Will Priest be picked the most in week 6, or will we see an uptick next week? I guess we'll just have to wait to find out and see exactly what the players are feeling going into week 5. Taking a look at how the classes fared this week, we do see Shaman, interestingly enough, at the top at 3-0, tied with Rogue for 100% overall. A limited number of games played, but I don't think anybody would have expected Shaman to go undefeated in a week, let alone go 3-0. More interesting to note is Paladin, that struggled mightily at 1-6 this week, only pulling up a 14% win percentage. Hopefully it's able to bounce back in the coming weeks. As we take a look at the overall class rankings as far as win percentages go for the season so far, we see Rogue sitting atop at an impressive 88% win percentage, while some of the other classes that you would expect to be at the bottom, including Warrior at 35%, no surprises there. Priest still has a steady win percentage overall for the week, but as we can clearly tell, Paladin, with the week that they had, is now under 50%, and we'll look to rebound as we move forward. Moving into the playoff portion of the weekly recap, it has never been closer, and as we take a look here, we have Ridiculous Hat sitting alone at the top, currently at 4-0, with Rod Johnston in second as of right now with a 3-1 record. From there, we have Andrew Brown, who is currently at 2-2 with 9 wins overall and 6 losses. And then we also have Spiver at number 4, who is also 2-2 with 9 games won and also 8 games against him as well. Those are the current top 4 that would be in the playoffs if it started tomorrow, but luckily for us, we have 3 more weeks of awesome action to get through, so we'll see how this all shakes out moving forward. Taking a look at the players that are still looking to make a move and get into that top 4, we have Chris Plummer currently sitting at number 5 at 2-2 with 9 games won and 10 games against him. We have Ziggy Sarah sitting at 6th at 2-2 as well with 8 games won and 10 games against her. We have Ben Reddington currently at 1-3 with 6 games won and 11 games against him. And then we also have Rasika still looking for that first victory of the year at 0-4, sitting at 5 wins and 12 games against him. Looking ahead at the matches for Week 5, we are going to have Spivey sitting at 2-2 currently taking on Rasika, who is currently at 0-4. We will also have Chris Plummer at 2-2 taking on Ridiculous Hat, who is still undefeated and will look to continue his dominance in the league. We also have Ben Reddington sitting at 1-3, taking on Ziggy Sarah, who is currently 2-2. And then last we have Andrew, who is currently 2-2, taking on Rod Johnston, who is currently 3-1.
We are now officially halfway through the season, and with only 3 weeks remaining, all the players are going to be looking to make a final playoff push. Remember, the top 4 get in, so it's going to be crazy to see how it all turns out, who makes it in, who doesn't, and who ends up ultimately being on top. And now I want to go ahead and announce the winner of the weekly pick'em. It is going to be William Jensen. So congratulations, William. He actually had a perfect pick'em this week. Went 4 for 4 and got the bonus point for retweeting the tweet that we send out on a weekly basis. That's all I have for now for this week. Thank you to everybody who participated in both the giveaway and this week's weekly pick'em. As always, you can make your picks for Week 5 starting right now. So thank you very much for your time, and see you next week.